Hello, everyone. I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today we are going to talk about how I outline my novels. So, this is a question that I have gotten from a few different people. And the best way to explain my process is I have the initial brainstorm where I just throw everything out on the page, just get all the ideas out of my head. And then I kind of take that raw material and I organize it into a very rough outline that will eventually become the novel. So, how that works is the fact that I have broken down novels into this very simple formula that makes working through each project really streamlined and really easy for me to be able to track my progress as well as give myself really simple goals that I can meet, because that's another one of the big things that I've noticed is a lot of times people will give themselves too large of goals and then they'll get discouraged. So this is an easy way for you to be able to feel good about the progress you're making while not getting overwhelmed. So, how I do that is it's some very basic math. As y'all know, I am very bad at math, so we got to keep it as basic as possible. The average novel is between 80,000 and 100,000 words. So we take that in that I set my goal to 80,000, that I want to write at least 80,000 words for a novel. Now, why do I have my goal be 80,000 as opposed to 90,000 or 100,000? Well, the reason for that is because with my editing process, I'm going to end up with far more than 80,000 words. So I want to make sure there's that wiggle room for as I'm going through the process and as the novel grows, so that I don't all of a sudden have a totally out of control novel that's just over the top way too long, because that is a thing, y'all, is that if your novel is too long, publishers might not want to pick it up for publication. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, to keep it in that 80 to 100 sweet spot. Now, when you break that down, the average chapter length for most novels is about 2,000 to 2,500 words. Now, you may ask, why that number in particular? It's honestly just the number that I've noticed that most professional authors, that's about the length that they use for their chapters, in that it prevents reader exhaustion, and that if you have chapters that are too long, your readers are going to get exhausted. Because think about it this way, how do you oftentimes read a book and say, okay, I'm going to read up until this point and then I'm going to take a break, I'm going to go do this other task or whatever? You say, I'm just going to read one more chapter. Well, reading a 2,500 word chapter is a huge difference than reading a 4,000 word chapter. It's going to take you way longer, and a lot of times it's also going to exhaust the reader. So, keeping in mind that happy medium with your chapters is also going to help your readership and help publishers potentially accept your novel. So, using this formula of this is the total word count that I want for the novel, and then this is the total word count that I want per chapter. When you break that down, that means that the average novel is about 30 to 35 chapters long. I like to shoot for 32 because when you do a whole nice little round robin division math thing going on, 80,000 divided by 2,500 is 32. So I break that down where I literally in my Word document go chapter 1, chapter 2, blah, 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 all the way down to chapter 32. I take my big blob of raw material, all of the random crap that I just wrote down that I'm like, I have a story idea, whether that's a paragraph, it's a few pages, whatever, it doesn't matter. I take that idea and I start to think about it in terms of plot points. So I'm sure many of you remember from your English classes way back when in school, when they talked about the whole how to analyze a book in English class, with the whole like, oh, the conflict, the rising action, the resolution, blah, 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 that whole little like chart thing that they had going on. That's literally what you're going to do right now, is you are going to basically create that chart in your novel via the different chapters that you just outlined. So, most of the time, with books. You want to have the big moments, the big turning point in your book. You want to have that 3/4 of the way into your story. You want to have that basically near the end of your book. The big huzzah of your book needs to be near the end of the book. You don't want to have it too soon in your book because everything after that is just kind of like and it's going to be boring for your reader to read. So you want to make sure that's pushed further back in the book because the last fourth of the book is supposed to be your big moment of conflict, the big turning point in the book, the big huzzah moment. And then you have the little dip down where everybody kind of recovers from the big huzzah moment. And then you have the plateau where basically it's, we start to wrap everything up with a happy little bow, get all of the conflicts resolved, get the plot resolved, all that good stuff. Basically, and then they lived happily ever after the end. That whole sort of thing fits in that little plateau at the end of your story. Now, how long that is can be anywhere from one chapter to several chapters. But however you want to outline it, you want to make sure that's further to the back of your book. You don't want it to be like halfway through your book. Otherwise, that's going to be a really boring second half of your book, y'all. Trust me. So once you break down that whole rising action conflict zippity doo dah with outlining your chapters, it makes it a lot easier for you to figure out what goes in those different chapters. So I usually have it where the first fourth of the book is basically getting everything set up. We're learning who the characters are. We're learning what they care about, what their raison d'etre is, what the conflict is, all that good stuff. Basically, it's the whole why should the reader read the book? It's what is the story is about. That's the first fourth of the book. Then the next fourth of the book, so to the halfway point, is where we really want to set up that conflict. We really want to get that conflict going. We really want to introduce, okay, stuff is happening. The characters are dealing with it. They're trying to figure out what they're supposed to do. All that good stuff. That goes in the next fourth of the book. Then we go on to the halfway point of the book. So about around where the halfway point of the book is, you want to basically have that be a smaller big huzzah conflict point. So you want to make sure that your reader still has their attention span. They still feel engaged and excited about the book. About halfway through the book, you want to have a smaller huzzah moment. So basically you want it to be half as grand and as the big huzzah moment near the end of the book in order to get your reader to keep reading through the book. Most of the time, readers will quit reading a book, either the first fourth of the book, in that they're not really interested in what the book is about, so they're not going to be interested in it at all, or they quit at the halfway point because you've made it boring. It just drags on for far too long. You need something to happen. You can't just have your characters sitting around and staring at each other. You have to have stuff happen. A lot of times, this will be the points for red herrings, or this will be the points for the small boss before the big baddie, all that kind of stuff. So you kind of want to give them their first big trial that they have to pass in order to prove that they're going to be able to deal with the grand huzzah at the end of the book. And then, as we said, 3/4 of the way through the book, that's when you want to have your grand huzzah. So huge buildup. Make that going up the roller coaster hill as scary and exciting as possible. Oh my God, the reader just can't wait to get to the huzzah moment. There's so much going on. There's so much buildup. It's so much suspense. Oh my God, all of that. Those are the chapters for that. And then you get to the huzzah point. So we're at the top of the hill looking down, and oh my God. And then you take them on that roller coaster dive down. You want to make it fast and hard and action and dialogue and just so much going on that the reader just is turning pages. They can't stop. It's 2 a.m. and they cannot put this book down. That's what you want for those chapters. And then the final part of the book, usually anywhere between, as I said, 1 to 4 chapters, that's where then, okay, we come down from the hill, we're gliding to a stop, everybody's coming down from it. resolution from the big huzzah, tying all the little bows on the little plot points, character development, all that good stuff. That's where you want to be so that once you actually get to the end of the book, the big part where you get to write the end, most satisfying part of writing a book ever, y'all, is writing those two little words at the bottom. When you get to that point, you want to make sure that all of your stuff is all wrapped up nicely. Now, for those of y'all who your style is to have cliffhangers or it's a series, so it continues on and all that, that's fine. You can totally do that. But in terms of that singular book, whether you're going to have it continue on or whatever you're doing with it, you want to make sure that the major stuff that is going to be contained within that one book, maybe not necessarily in the whole series, but in that one book, you want to make sure all of that stuff has nice, neat little bows on it. You can't leave everything open-ended because that's very frustrating for your readers. You need to give them at least some completed bows, y'all. It's the little carrot that keeps them going reading through your book series. Sure, you can have the big, cliffhanger, read, tune in next time thing. That's totally fine. But in order to earn that, you have to give them some of those tidy little bows in order for them to trust you that next time is going to also be satisfying and exciting. So make sure that you're building that in if you're writing a full series rather than just a singular book. So, how exactly do you go about all of that? I know that all of that sounds rather daunting because a lot of times when people are writing their stories, myself included, you don't always know what's going to happen. It's usually something that kind of happens organically as you're writing. So it's okay if you don't necessarily know how the story ends, or maybe you do know how it ends, but you don't really know all of the points for how they're going to get there. That's okay. The beauty of this outlining process is that you don't necessarily have to know what happens in each chapter or each outline plot point. You just write yourself notes. So it can be something as simple as the big huzzah goes here or small huzzah goes here. Just those little notes, those little clues for yourself will help keep your writing on track so that at least you know what you're aiming for. You know what plot points you're going to be reaching soon so that you can have those goals in mind while you're writing. And oftentimes that's going to help you kind of work through what you're writing organically is having that goal in mind. And in terms of what I said with having realistic goals in order to be like, I'm going to write 100 words today. I'm going to write 200 words today. I'm going to write 500 words today. Whatever it is that your personal goals are for where you put those benchmarks, having this outlining process makes it a lot easier for you because you have the mini goal of this is how many words I'm going to write today or this week or whatever. Then you have the larger goal of I finished writing a chapter. That's a little milestone point for yourself that you can also celebrate because, y'all, it is important to celebrate the small goals as well as the big goals in your writing. That's another thing that a lot of people get discouraged with their writing is that they're only thinking of the I finished the whole manuscript, the ends, all that as their only goal point that they celebrate. You need to celebrate all the small goal points on the way there too. Otherwise, you're going to discourage yourself. You have to make sure that you celebrate all the small goals along the way. Be kind to yourself. As well as it makes it easier that if you're the kind of writer that doesn't write chronologically, you're the kind that kind of jumps around. You're like, oh, I'm writing this part of the book, and then we're going to go back to the beginning over here and write this, and oh, wait, this near the ending, and da da da. It makes it a lot easier to keep all of that organized because then you can just take that and then drop it into whatever chapter you feel it fits best. As well as if you find, you know what, this scene needs to go before this scene or whatever, it makes it a lot easier to pick that stuff up and put it somewhere else when you've already organized your manuscript like that so that you're not just staring at a huge block of text. When you've already broken it up with chapter 1, chapter 2, blah, 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 it helps so that you can keep everything organized, especially with that edit as you go kind of process. It just keeps everything from getting all muddy and confusing. The last thing with doing this kind of outline, it also really helps that if this is a project for someone else, meaning that you're doing ghostwriting, or if you have been approached by someone that they want you to write something, whether it's a publisher or insert reason here, some sort of client project, whatever. It helps with the communication with the client or the publisher or whoever have you so that you can tell them, yeah, I've completed chapter 2 and I've completed chapter 5 and I've completed chapter 13 and I've completed half of chapter 4, whatever. It gives you clear communication that you can give to that client in order to let them know where you are in the process as well, rather than being like, well, I have a giant block of text and then I made the giant block of text bigger today. It's just it's a lot more specific because a lot of times clients, I mean, publishers it's different, but most clients, they can't really wrap their head around, "Oh, I wrote 500 words today." That means nothing to them. It's just it gives them a lot easier of a way to gauge how much work you're actually doing on the project. So I hope that this has been helpful for y'all. If y'all have any questions, please do let me know in the comments below. As y'all know, this is all just based on my personal experience as well as the experiences of people that I know personally. And if you are a pantser or a plotter, let me know in the comments below. Tell me your outlining tips and tricks, all that good stuff, because you know what, y'all? We are all here to learn and grow. Thank y'all so much. Bye bye.